What if I told you the most terrifying Nazi punishment wasn't a gas chamber, wasn't a bullet to the head, wasn't even the crack of a whip or the silence of starvation? It was something simpler, primitive, a rope, a pole, and a town forced to watch. No machinery, no courtroom, just a knot tied tight enough to send a message louder than any judge. This wasn't justice. It was fear, braided into every twist of that rope. Before we uncover one of the most chilling forms of post-war punishment ever used in Europe, hit subscribe to The First Hunt. Because some truths weren't buried, they were left hanging in plain sight. As World War II drew to its bitter end, the world demanded accountability. The cities were in ruins. The concentration camps were opened. The horrors were undeniable. But in parts of Eastern Europe, justice didn't come from courts. It came from wood, from rope, from silence. They called it pole hanging, a method that required no tools, no gallows, just a tall wooden pole about 3 meters high, and enough rope to send a message that would echo for generations. Unlike traditional hangings, where a trapdoor gave the condemned a quick end, pole hanging was slow, deliberate, designed not just to kill, but to haunt. Here's how it worked. The victim's hands were often tied behind their back, a noose placed tightly around the neck. Then, with a pull of the rope, the body was hoisted, just barely off the ground, not high enough to snap the neck, but just enough to make breathing impossible. It didn't kill instantly. It suffocated. 1 minute passed, then 2, sometimes 5. Their legs kicked, searching for ground. Their face turned blue, then purple, eyes wide, lips gasping for air, and through it all, they stayed conscious. The pain was prolonged, the suffering was visible, and that's exactly what the executioners wanted. This wasn't just a punishment, it was a performance. In Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Poland, it became a ritual. Crowds were summoned, crimes were read aloud. Some of the condemned wore their uniforms, like SS officer Karl Hermann Frank, hung in Prague with his medal still on. There were no curtains, no blindfolds, only eyes. Children stood at the front, mothers held their breath, and sometimes, even the relatives of the condemned were forced to attend. This wasn't war, this was revenge, turned into public theater. In Budapest, Ferenc Szálasi, the man who oversaw the murder of thousands of Hungarian Jews, was slowly strangled in front of thousands of citizens. Some went silently, others screamed. A few shouted Nazi slogans with their final breath. And the hangman, he wasn't just a killer, he was a craftsman. Some learned to adjust the rope's tension, controlling how long it took. If the crowd wanted suffering, he made it last. If officials wanted silence, he ended it quicker. This wasn't about law, it was about spectacle. Many victims were never given a trial. Sometimes, a whispered rumor was enough. Spy, collaborator, traitor. Those words, once spoken, became a death sentence. Signs were pinned to the bodies after death. Some said saboteur. Others simply read enemy. No appeals, no defense. Just a name, a rope, and the order to proceed. This method spread fast. From rural villages to capital cities, poles rose in schoolyards, train stations, even outside music academies. And the message was clear. If you betray us, you won't disappear quietly. You'll become the warning for everyone else. Even as Allied troops marched in, some executions happened hours before their arrival. No documentation, no names on lists, just corpses hanging in the wind, and ropes that told no lies. In some towns, lampposts became gallows, birds circled, clothes swayed, rain soaked the wood, and the smell of death clung to the air long after the bodies were gone. Children grew up thinking it was normal. They'd point at ropes the way others pointed at street signs. And the haunting part? No one spoke of it. When the war ended, the poles were cut down. But the fear never left. It wasn't recorded in textbooks. You won't see it in many museums. But the whispers remain. In old homes, in fading letters, in the silence between generations. Ask the elderly in Eastern Europe. They might not answer. But their eyes will tell you. They saw. They heard the rope creak. They smelled the sweat. They remember the look on a man's face when the world went dark. This wasn't just execution. It was a message burned into history with no ink at all. And if you thought this was horrifying, you haven't seen what came after. Tap to uncover the next chapter of horrors the Nazis and their enemies left behind. Because some ghosts never left.